Hello, happy Tuesday. It is March 24th, and we are going to be reading chapters 9 and 10 inside of Night Books. Chapter 9 is called What Grows with No Light. Okay. Alex's new life in apartment 4E settled into a predictable routine. During the day, he pretended to write in the library while combing the stacks for another entry written by the mysterious girl. It was slow going. Not only did Alex need to examine every page of every book, he kept getting distracted by the stories themselves, often losing himself in reading for hours on end. It was the only way he could escape the apartment. At night, Alex read aloud while Natasha sat in her misting room. She didn't offer any more information about the purpose of the blue mist, and Alex didn't ask, though he had developed a theory. After each story, the witch listened to the wall for a moment and then patted it like an obedient steed. Alex didn't completely buy her explanation about the dark magic of the apartment being appeased by his narrative offerings, but he kept those doubts to himself. No good could come from questioning her. Besides, he liked sharing his stories. Maybe Natasha was overly fond of correcting him, especially if the story contained any magic, but at least Alex didn't have to worry about the witch thinking he was a freak or having such a dark imagination. As Natasha said again and again, they were one and the same. The same dark magic that runs through Natasha's veins runs through mine, Alex thought. It scared him. Alex wished he could talk to Yasmin about all of this and share his exciting discovery in the library, but she continued to spurn his attempts at friendship. Eventually, he gave up, and they settled into each of their sections of the apartment. Alex in the library, Yasmin in the place behind the coat closet door. They barely exchanged a word all day. Alex grew lonely with only his thoughts to keep him company. These inevitably turned to his family. He missed them so much. Days were bad, nights were worse. The fact that his family was only 4 floors away didn't make him feel any better. They might as well have been on Saturn. Sometimes he imagined their reunion, playing it over in his head like the end of a cheesy movie. I knock on the door. Mom and Dad answer. They don't hug me at first. They're in shock. They can't believe it's really their son, safe and sound. And then it starts. The tears, the hugs, and kisses. Even John gives me an affectionate fist tap. Alex longed to make this fantasy a reality. There was only one way to do it. Escape. He wished he could search the apartment more thoroughly to see if he had missed a clue, but it was impossible. Eleanor could be anywhere. Besides, if there was an exit, he knew exactly where it would be, through Natasha's bedroom door. Alex doubted that there was anything special about the actual bedroom itself. His interest was in a magical room assessed by the bone key. He'd only seen Natasha enter this way once, and she had checked around carefully before slipping the bone key inside, shooing Alex away when she saw him standing at the end of the hallway. Whatever was behind that door was so important that she didn't want Alex catching a glimpse of it. He was dying to know what it was, just as he was dying to know what Yasmin did in the coat closet every day. Unfortunately, the only way to find out was to steal Natasha's bone keys, which she kept in her pocket at all times. Alex wasn't desperate enough to try something that crazy. At least, not yet. Days passed. Alex searched the library, told his stories, and dreamed of escape. He imagined that things would have continued in this fashion if it hadn't been for the danglers. Alex had been combing the stacks all morning with nothing to show for it but blurry eyes and an aching back. He cleaned his glasses on the bottom of his shirt while considering the number of books waiting to be searched. Even after a week, he had barely made a dent. It was going to take forever, he thought. He had found, to this point, exactly 6 other entries by the mysterious writer, who he had affectionately dubbed Unicorn Girl. As far as Alex could tell, she shelved the books at random, as there were no dates to tell him their precise chronological order. He relied instead upon the rising desperation in their tone. Thus, the earliest 2 entries, Alex believed, were drawings of unicorns. little more than cheerful graffiti in the margins. And the next one on the list, things I miss: Mom, Dad, ice cream, Jude, sometimes, raindrops. Alex, whose mind often wandered to his life before the apartment, knew exactly how Unicorn Girl felt. He also thought it was funny how she put Jude, who he assumed was her brother, after ice cream. It made him feel like he knew her a little bit. The fourth entry, on the other hand, just made him sad. 5 sentences formed a heart around a carefully rendered sketch of a unicorn pendant. My special pin from Mom and Dad. I wear it close to my heart and touch it when I need to remember them better. When they get fuzzy in my brain, I will never, ever take it off. Fuzzy in my brain, Alex wondered. Does that mean she's starting to forget her parents? How long has she been Natasha's prisoner at this point? According to the 5th entry, even Unicorn Girl didn't know. Today I tried to figure out how long I'd been here. Couldn't. The days and nights get all mixed up. I asked the witch how long and she wouldn't tell me. The witch doesn't tell me anything. She just wants her story every night. So tired of reading her scary stories. I hate her. I've been looking for a spell book, thinking I could do magic. Then I could make her pay. But the only books here are stories. Stupid, useless stories. I've seen a movie once, this guy with a long beard. He made scratches in a prison wall so he could remember how long he'd been there. I should have done that, except I never thought it would be this long, and now it's too late to start. Just thinking about this entry depressed him. When Unicorn Girl had first been captured, she believed that Natasha was a lonely woman who would eventually set her free. That hope and optimism was gone now. She had changed. Is that what's going to happen to me? Alex wondered. He hoped not. And if the final entry was any indication, maybe he could avoid such a fate. I escaped tonight. Everything is set. Escape tonight? Alex thought. The 3 simple words quickening his heart. Everything is set? That means she had a plan. If so, it was entirely conceivable that she wrote it down. The answer that Alex sought might be waiting somewhere in the library. It was great news, spectacular news. If Unicorn Girl had really written her plan down, and if he could find it, he had a sneaking suspicion that it wasn't going to happen today. He considered taking a break from his search and reading for a while. A slim volume titled The Maze Inside the Labyrinth had caught his eye, but instead sat at the table and opened his notebook. I should try to write something, he thought, just in case Natasha starts getting suspicious. This notebook, the one with the peeling cover, was the only one he had used since coming to apartment 4E. He had already read most of the stories, but Alex wasn't worried. He still had 2 other notebooks in his backpack. Last night, he had flipped through them just to see what was there. Some of the stories had been written when he was only 8 or 9 years old, and Alex didn't think that they were very good to share. Others were a little more than unfinished ideas that had fizzled out like defective fireworks. Even excluding those, however, Alex still had over 40 stories in the bank. That's plenty for now, he thought, closing the notebooks. No need to worry about it. There was a knock on the door. Alex pushed his chair back, unsure who it could be. When Yasmin came to tell him it was dinner time every night, she simply walked into the library without knocking. And although Natasha had never actually checked on him, Alex doubted that she would be so polite. Could it be somebody else, he thought? Maybe the apartment lured a new kid inside. He inched the door open and peeked curiously through the gap. It was Yasmin. Usually her face was flat and expressionless, as though her emotions were a secret she wanted to keep hidden from the world. Today, however, Yasmin was visibly upset. She rocked back and forth on her heels while twisting the bottom of her t-shirt into a knot. I need your help, she said. With what? Alex asked. Something happened and... Yasmin pulled the brim of her Met cap tight over her forehead and closed her eyes, as though trying to wish the entire situation away. This is the mistake, she said, wrapping her arms around herself. I'm sure I can figure out a way to fix it on my own. I shouldn't expect you to... She took a few steps back. Yasmin, Alex said, let me help. Whatever it is you need, you don't have to do it alone. She stared at him for a moment with a dubious expression on her face. Finally, she nodded. I'll need to get an extra pair of goggles first, she said. One of the lenses is cracked, but I still think it'll work. Why do I need goggles? To protect your eyes. I know what goggles do. I meant, and see if you can find a pair of gloves, Yasmin said, cutting him off. Thick ones. Well, what exactly are we doing? Alex asked. It'll be easier to explain once you're inside, Yasmin said. She smiled weakly. You wanted to know what I do every day. Well, you're about to find out. Once Alex had tracked down two mismatched gloves, one bright pink and the other with a small hole in the left pinky, he met Yasmin in front of the coat closet door. She handed him a pair of yellow-tinted goggles that looked like something you might wear during a science lab. Alex slipped them over his eyes. The band was too tight around his head, but he didn't want to take the time to adjust it. He was afraid that any hesitation might give Yasmin the opportunity to change her mind. Let's go, she said. What about her? Alex asked, nodding his head towards Eleanor. The cat sat in the middle of the living room floor, watching them with interest. She had stayed out of Alex's way since he told Natasha that he needed solitude in order to work. But every so often, he caught her staring at him with cold green eyes. The witch already seemed to dislike the cat, and by stripping Eleanor of her library duty, Alex had diminished her value even further. If she had a chance at redemption, he was certain she would take it. Eleanor is going to come whether you like it or not, Yasmin said. It'll be much worse if we try to lock her out. Then Natasha really will think we're up to something. She slid the bone key into the keyhole and pulled the door open. The expensive coats that normally weighed down the rod were no longer there. Instead, the dimensions were impossibly huge. But he wasn't fazed by that as he would have been a week ago. Eleanor passed between them and vanished into the murk. You can't see anything at the start, Yasmin said, so just follow my footsteps and try to keep up. There's no light at all? Alex asked. Not the kind you're thinking of, she said. That reminds me, close the door behind you. Alex didn't like the idea of plunging them into total darkness, so when Yasmin turned around, he left the door open a crack. This made him feel a little bit better, knowing that there's still the slightest thread of light in this place. We should have brought flashlights, he said, following the echo of Yasmin's footsteps. That's the last thing you want to do, she said. Besides, you don't really need it. Just keep walking straight. It's not far. See? You're about to pass through the big curtain here. Her voice was suddenly muffled. It's on the other side. Alex, walking through the darkness with hands outstretched, felt something heavy and smooth hanging from the ceiling. It reminded him of those lead aprons that dentists made you wear when they x-rayed your teeth. There was a seam in the center. Alex slipped through it and gasped with wonder. Alex liked to write about things that didn't exist. He saw them clearly enough in his imagination, but in order to paint a picture in the reader's mind, he created links to the real world. For that reason, he might describe a monster as a skinny rat with wings, or compare the smell of a sun-baked zombie to a liverwurst sandwich left in a locker over summer vacation. The sight before him now was so remarkable, however, that there was nothing on earth with which to compare it to. Alex could only describe it in terms of imaginary things. A photosynthesis garden on some small alien planet, a neon forest hidden in the center of the earth. What is this place? Alex asked, staring slack jaw at the long tables that stretched from into the distance. from clay pots and long liqueur bottles drew a dizzying variety of flora and fauna whose violent colors exploded in the dark. In some cases, they resembled plants and flowers familiar to Alex. A lily, the color of hibiscus tea, yellow sunflowers like streaks of colored chalk on a blackboard, a tiny cactus, its needles tipped with red. In most cases, however, the plants were unlike anything Alex had ever seen. Some breathed, some snapped, some chewed. The air was filled with the musky smell of growing things, but there was something slightly soiled beneath it. He thought someone had committed a murder and hid the body in here to rot. Alex was both exhilarated and afraid. "It's a nursery," Yasmin said. Her white shirt glowed in the dark, like she was about to play a game of laser tag. "Well, that's what Natasha calls it at least, except these aren't normal plants, as you've probably noticed. They're meant to grow at night. You put them under direct sunlight or even a light bulb, and they're dead in an hour. That's why we use black light instead." Long fluorescent bulbs dangled above the tables. They gave off a faint purplish glow. "Isn't blacklight what they use to make bloodstains show up at crime scenes?" Alex asked, remembering something he had read while doing research on forensic investigations for a story. "Is it?" Yasmin asked. He expected to hear disgust in her voice, just like other kids with his gruesome interests, when his gruesome interests spilled into conversations. But instead, there was only mild interest. "The only time I've ever seen black lights in the real world was at this indoor mini golf place. All the windmills and golf balls and stuff glowed in the dark, just like this, except without the magic plants." "These plants are magic?" Alex asked. "It's a witch's nursery," Yasmin said. What did you expect? Geraniums? Come on, we need to hurry." She set off between the tables, walking at a fast clip. Alex had to practically run to keep up. If these plants are magic," he asked, "what do they do?" "Nothing yet," Yasmin said. "They're just ingredients. You have to put them together the right way for anything to happen." An electric thrill ran through Alex's body. Are you talking about magic potions?" he asked. "According to Natasha, no one wants potions anymore," Yasmin said. "Customers refuse to put up with the taste these days. These days, it's all essential oils. People put a few drops in these misters, like the kind that you use to make a room smell good, and breathe in the magic." She sighed, remembering something. "That reminds me. I have to check the distillers. I started a new batch of wealth oil yesterday." You're the one that makes them?" Alex asked in amazement. "Anyone can do it," Yasmin said, though he thought he detected a hint of pride in her voice. "There's no magic involved. You just follow the recipe like cooking." "What about the blue oil that Natasha puts in her diffuser?" Alex asked. "Are you the one who—" "No way," Yasmin said. "I make the harmless stuff, like the oils that will give you good luck on a job interview. Natasha's not stupid. She doesn't teach me how to make anything that could hurt her." "Do you at least know what the blue oil is used for?" Alex asked. Yasmin walked faster, clearly uncomfortable with the change of topic. "Never really thought about it," she mumbled. "I have a theory," Alex said, catching up with her. "It's totally fairy tale stuff, but it doesn't mean I'm wrong. Natasha looks like she's 28, 30, right? I think she's a lot older than that. It's the blue mist that keeps her young. So many things start to make sense then. The way the apartment is decorated, the furniture, the wallpaper, those creepy little statues of kids. It's like her grandmother's house, you know? And all those books in her library, some of them are ancient. I'm sure she has been collecting them for decades, maybe even centuries." Yasmin stopped short and turned to face him. "It's not best to talk about things like that, or it's best not to talk about things like that, she said. It doesn't concern me or you. Her eyes filtered around the room and then settled on Alex, urging him to silence. Finally, he understood. Forgot about Eleanor. She's probably standing nearby eavesdropping. The little spy will report anything we say back to Natasha. You're right, Alex said. It's really none of my business what Natasha does. Yasmin gave him the slightest nod. Now you get it. A little surge of joy sparked inside Alex. It felt good to talk to somebody without using words. That was something that friends did. What did you need help with? Alex asked as they started walking again. He fiddled with his goggles, which were beginning to fog up from the exertion. Almost there, Yasmin said. And don't take your goggles off. The light can really hurt your eyes. I'm surprised Natasha cared enough to give them to you in the first place. She doesn't care, Yasmin said. I'm just to no use to her if I'm blind. As they moved, Alex glanced over at the long tables, his eyes jumping from one wonder to another. Small place cards, like you might find at a regular greenhouse, set in front of each planter. So then it lists the flowers. Widow orchid, mixed with water, snake venom, spritz daily. Demon's mane. Fed dried tarantula legs when petals are open. Beware of acid. Nightberries. Plant in soil from a freshly dug grave. Water with children's tears. Great for baking. You take care of all these plants by yourself? Alex asked. Yep. Wow, he said, suddenly feeling guilty for his lazy days spent combing books in the library. That's a lot of work for one person. How do you keep up? I like to keep busy, Yasmin said. Always have. She paused to pluck a few needles from an orange herb and slipped them into her pocket. It would be a lot easier if these plants weren't so fragile. Feed them the wrong thing, or at the wrong time, or in the wrong way, and bad things happen, which is why I brought you in here in the first place. She scratched at the back of her neck. I screwed up big time. I was so tired, and it's hard to read those little signs in front of each plant with these goggles on. And I ended up feeding a snapping vine rat's blood instead of bat's blood. You have both? And cat's blood. There's a whole bookshelf. It's not the point. The point is that the plant is, sick. Sick? The good news is I know how to fix it. I'm sure Eleanor is going to tell Natasha one way or another, but I figure if anything is better already, that should help, at least. Problem is, it isn't something I can fix on my own. Well, we'll do it together, Alex said. Yasmin removed her cap in order to fix a few strands of hair that had slipped free. Her face was ashen. You're nice, she said, and I appreciate your help, but this still doesn't change anything. I don't want to be your friend. I don't want friends. Not anymore. There was no anger in the words, only sadness. Alex had assumed that Yasmin kept her distance because she thought he was a weirdo. Now he wondered if there was a different reason, something that didn't involve him at all. Why doesn't she want friends, Alex thought. He followed Yasmin deeper into the darkness. So it brings us to chapter 10, which is called The Danglers. Chapter 10, The Danglers. They walked between a series of long tables, their way lit by glowing plants. Alex passed a neon green flower with tooth-like petals that snapped at him as he passed. A miniature tree no bigger than a marble and a perfect red rose that Yasmin warned him was the most dangerous thing in the entire nursery. Alex supposed that he should have been scared, but mostly he was just excited. He couldn't help it. Creepy plants were awesome. Yet, at last, Yasmin stopped walking. This is it, she said. Alex followed her gaze to a tall trellis that had been erected on the opposite side of the tables. Vines twisted up over and between the diamond-shaped spaces, their colors bright against the darkness. Some were spiky, others had thorns. One yellow vine hung lower than the rest, as though weighted down. Along its bottom dangled dozens of tiny sacs about the size of golf balls. Alex caught a whiff of something foul. That the vine? He asked, holding his nose. Yeah, Yashmin's meant. It's gotten worse. We have to hurry. You have something we can cut it down with? Yashmin scoffed. If it was that easy, I could have done it myself, she said. Look, you see this? She leaned over the tabletop and pointed to one of the sacks hanging from the underside of the vine. It's a dangler. They grow on sick plants, the magic kind at least, like an infection. This poor vine's got them everywhere now. Alex leaned over the edge of the table and took a closer look. The thin skin of the sack was pulled taut over a black shape, like a chrysalis. What's inside? He asked. Could be anything. I've only seen 2 danglers actually open. The first one was just a regular old spider. The second one, she fiddled with her cap. I don't like to talk about the second one. Luckily, we got it right away. We? Alex asked, surprised. Natasha actually helped? Yasmin gave him a curt nod and continued. She seemed eager to change the topic as quickly as possible. Right now, the thing inside this dangler is just chilling, she said, sucking up the plant juice. We cut down the vine, though. It's like taking a bottle away from a baby. It'll wake up. Then they'll all wake up. Alex jumped in surprise as the sack in front of him suddenly twitched, causing a chain reaction that continued all the way down the vine, like a string of lights caught in the wind. If we can't cut down the vine, then what do we do? Remove each and every dangler, Yashmin said, one at a time. If we're careful enough, whatever's growing inside the dangler won't realize it's been cut off from its food for at least a minute or 2. That's more than enough time to kill it. Alex examined the sack in front of him. It dangled slightly from the vine on a purplish strand, like a fruit on its stem. If you managed to twist it in just the right way, it looked like it would just come off. Still, he couldn't imagine touching the fragile-looking skin without the entire thing bursting open in his hands. If the dangler breaks, he started. Then the thing inside wakes up instantly, Yashmin said. In your hands, not a good thing. My hands? Alex asked. Don't worry, Yashmin said. I'll take care of the hard part. You just have to, here, I'll show you. She handed him a pair of cacti that glowed like photosynthesis coral, and then took 2 of her own. Alex followed her the length of 3 tables until they reached a tiny metal door on the floor. Yashmin placed the cacti around the door like work lights and then lifted it up by the curved handle, revealing a hole filled with swirling darkness. I'll hand you the dangler, she said, and you throw it into the void here. The void? It's magic, Yashlin said. There's a few of them in the nursery. The one closest to the door is where I take the trash out every day. Basically, this is the world's greatest garbage chute. You drop something down there, it's gone forever. You know, just don't stick your hand in it. I don't think you have to worry about that, Alex said, taking a cautious step back from the hole. They returned to the beginning of the vine. Eleanor was waiting for them. The cat had found a good spot and settled in, confident that something was going to go terribly wrong and wanting to have the best view possible when it happened. Stay put, Yashmin told Alex. I'll twist a dangler off and hand it to you. How do I make sure the sack doesn't break? Alex asked, wishing he had found better gloves. Be gentle, Yashmin said. Like when somebody blows bubbles and you catch one on the tip of your finger. They always pop when I do that. Oh, okay, she said. Not encouraging, but that's cool. How about this? Hold your hands together like you're cupping water, only the water might eat you if you drop it. Alex did as she asked. His hands only trembled a little bit. Perfect, Yashleen said, though she didn't look very confident. We better get started. Try to go as fast as possible, but not too fast. Make sure you don't trip, and maybe don't breathe too much. Also, the danglers might sometimes move, so be ready for that. Anything else? Alex asked between gritting teeth. Nope, that about covers it. Yashmeen climbed onto a rickety table. It wobbled beneath her weight. Shouldn't you be wearing gloves too? Alex asked. Need my fingers free. This takes a delicate touch. Yasmin reached up and pinched the spot where the sack joined the vine between her thumb and index fingers, and she twisted gently. The sack resisted at first, but finally came free, sliding into Yashmin's palm like an egg yolk. She rushed it to Alex's waiting hands. Even through the thick gloves, he could feel the beat of the dangler, warm with life. He carried it as quickly as he could to the hole in the floor. Just as he was about to open his hands, Alex felt the small shape inside the amber fluid twitch suddenly, as though it had woken up. He dropped it in. The darkness swirled faster for just a moment, as though swallowing, and then the dangler was gone. See? Yashmin said with a crooked smile. Easy. The children shared a look. There was something different between them now, a link that hadn't been there before. For the first time, they were acting as a team. They moved on to the next one. Hours ticked by to the steady rhythm of work. Twist, pull, walk, drop. Twist, pull, walk, drop. The danglers came in all shapes and sizes. Most were insectoid in nature, but Alex occasionally glimpsed fur and teeth through the tiny sacks. Every so often, a dangler shifted in his hands, usually at the last moment, as if sensing what was coming. After nearly losing his hold on one, Alex began to cup them between his hands, like trapping a firefly. He even did this with the danglers that were a little more than oozing pus, though he suspected that those ones hadn't grown correctly and would have never woken up at all. Into the void they all went. By mid-afternoon, 2/3 of the vine had been cleaned. With their goal now in sight, Yashmin grew even more focused. Alex's energy, on the other hand, had begun to flag. His stomach grumbled and his hands itched like crazy from those gloves. Nevertheless, he refused to suggest a break. He wanted to prove to Yashmin that she could really rely on him. We need to work together, he thought. Share what we know. That's our best chance of getting out of here. As they neared the end of their task, however, he wondered if he was kidding himself. Is helping Yashmin today going to actually change anything? She hadn't said a word to him in hours. What happens if things go back to the way they were after this? What if she refuses to talk to me? He couldn't let that happen. This might be his only chance to convince her they were on the same side. I should tell her about Unicorn Girl, he thought. Just have to make sure that Eleanor doesn't overhear us. If Natasha finds out what I know, she might kick me out of the library, or worse. He glanced over at the cat. For the first hour, she had tracked their every move. When it became clear that nothing interesting was going to happen, however, she placed her head on her paws and closed her eyes. Every so often, she would hiss in her sleep and flicker in and out of visibility. Yashmin, Alex whispered as he walked along the tabletop, searching for the next dangler. Can we talk? She gave him an annoyed look, anxious to get the work done. Do you need a break? She asked, because Natasha's going to be back soon, so we should push on. It's not that. Then what? He was just about to tell her when he took another sidelong glance at Eleanor. She wasn't there anymore. He heard the tiniest creak of the table to his right and saw a pile of soil flatten as though pressed down by an invisible body. She's listening, Alex thought. She probably wasn't ever asleep at all. That was just a trick. Yasmin lifted her Mets cap and wiped sweat from her forehead. You ever been to City Field? Alex asked awkwardly. He knew he couldn't talk about Unicorn Girl with Eleanor around. Baseball had been the first topic that popped into his head. Yasmin gave him a strange look and then turned her attention to the sack dangling before her. Alex figured that was the end of it, that she would ignore this question just like every other question he had ever asked her about life before in the apartment. After a moment, though, however, she answered. Maybe she sensed that, like Alex, that the silence needed to be filled in order to keep them sharp. Or maybe she's finally starting to trust me, Alex thought. We go on my birthday every year, Yasmin said. Left field bleachers. It's sort of a tradition. Cool, Alex said. We've been too. You're a Mets fan? Yasmin asked with an actual glimmer of excitement. Not really. You like the Yankees? She asked. Judging from the look on her face, Yasmin found this prospect even more disgusting than the Danglers. Neither one, Alex replied. My brother's the sports fan. He's a big jock. His room, you walk in and there's nothing but shiny trophies, like a dragon's hoard, an athletic dragon. John's pretty much a slob, except for his trophies. Those he keeps spotless. He has this special cleaning kit my mom got him when his football team won the championship. Yasmin nodded, half listening, while she positioned herself to twist off the next dangler. You like any sports at all? She asked. Not really, Alex said. John's always trying to get me to watch football. He says it's good for me, like vitamins or something. And then when my attention wanders, because watching people go up and down a field a few feet at a time is really boring, he gets really ticked off. What's wrong with you? Why can't you just like sports like a normal kid? Your brother sounds like a jerk, Yasmin said, grimacing. She was growing frustrated with this dangler. Wasn't twisting off as easy as the others. John isn't all bad, Alex said, suddenly feeling disloyal to his brother by speaking ill of him. Sometimes he watches old Twilight Zone episodes with me. And one time, when this kid was being mean to me at school, Alex trailed off, noticing that he had lost Yasmin's attention. How about you? You have any brothers or sisters? Yasmin opened her mouth, about to answer, and then a startled look crossed her face. She glared at Alex with renewed mistrust. My family is none of your business, she snapped. How many times do I have to tell you we're not friends? Yasmin turned back towards Alex with a definitive spin of her heel. Apparently, their conversation was over. It took a lot to make Alex angry, but he felt it bubbling up inside of him now. He tried. He was tired and hungry, and suddenly feeling foolish for helping this girl in the first place. What's your problem? He asked. Right now, Yasmin replied, tugging cautiously on the vine. This dangler, it's stuck. I mean, what is your problem with me? Yasmin sighed and slowly twisted the dangler in a counterclockwise motion. I don't have a problem with you, Alex. Yeah, you do, he said. It was nice of him to let loose, stroke his anger into flames. You have been from the start. I don't get it. We're on the same team. This from the boy who hates sports? You know what I mean. We're both prisoners. Prisoners? Yasmin asked with a mocking half smile. Last time I checked, you spent your days in a comfy library making up stories. Poor thing. I'm still trapped here like you. His voice softened, the anger having run its course. You can trust me, Yasmin. I know exactly what you're going through. You do not, Yasmin screeched, her eyes suddenly filling with tears. You think just because you're here for a week, you have any idea what it's been like for me. You have no clue. It's all been so easy for you. In fact, you're probably having a blast like you're the star of one of those stories you write. Only you've never seen Natasha truly lose it. I have. You've never seen the horror in your friend's eyes as the magic starts to do its work. And As Yasmin talked, her attempt to detach the stubborn sack from the vine grew increasingly violent until she was twisting it from side to side with reckless abandonment. Now it finally came free and immediately slipped out of her hands, hitting the table with a solid plop. "No!" Yasmin exclaimed. Two red pincers burst through the outer layer of the sack and dug into the wood, gaining purchase and dragging the rest of the body to freedom. Alex watched in disgust and fascination as dozens of bristly legs shook off the rest of the sack like an unwanted sleeping bag. It's a centipede, Alex thought, except it was more than that. Of course, centipedes don't have legs that hummed and vibrated like the blades of an electric razor, nor did they have a periscopic eye dangling from a stalk in the center of their head. Yasmin brought her foot down, but the creature was too fast. It scurried along the tabletop, squeezing between pots and along leaves, its body undulating like a snake. As it moved, its vibrating legs spit sawdust into the air and left a long, shallow gouge in the tabletop. It passed over a fallen leaf and shredded it to nothing. Shredder, Alex thought, naming the creature in his head. "Get it!" Yasmin exclaimed. They sprinted towards the back of the nursery, Alex running alongside the table as Yasmin tracked their quarry up on top, avoiding the other plants as best she could. When the shredder came close enough to the edge, Alex slammed his gloved fist down. He lifted his hand, hoping to see the bug gut smeared across the table. Nothing. "Where'd it go?" Yasmin asked. Alex shook his head. He had no idea. They both listened closely for any possible sound. Even Eleanor joined them, ears perked, tiny monkey fingers protruding from her paws. Ready for action, Alex thought, with an unexpected feeling of affection for his foe. Finally, he heard a humming sound above him. Alex looked up as a manly-legged shadow scattered across the underside of the black lights, dusting the plants below with flickers of glass. "There!" Alex exclaimed, pointing up. It was too high for the children to reach, even standing on the tabletop. Not too high for Eleanor, though. The cat hissed and leapt onto the trellis, clinging to it with her tiny hands and climbing upward. She wasn't an expert climber by any means. Slowly but surely, however, she made her way closer to the light fixture hanging from the ceiling. "Not that I'm complaining," he said, "but why is Eleanor helping us?" "She's not," Yasmin said. "She's protecting Natasha's plants." "Works for me." They followed the shredder, trying to keep it in sight as it cut yellow wires with its sharp legs. Electricity sparked in the air. The black lights flickered and then went out altogether. Without them, the plants instantly stopped glowing. The children were plunged into darkness. Alex had never been afraid of the dark, but he had also never been in a magical nursery filled with scary plants and a razor-sharp-legged centipede before. That changed things. He ran to the nearest source of light, Yasmin by his side. The shredder followed them, dancing across the suspended metal hoods and finding the next yellow wire in no time at all. It was a quick learner. Another row of black lights went out, birthing a second pocket of darkness. They moved deeper into the nursery, away from the exit. "We're going the wrong way," Alex said. "It's okay," Yasmin replied. "We can fix all this." "Yasmin, if we don't, Natasha's going to be furious. This might be okay for you, storyteller, but it's not for me. I'm just the girl who waters the plants. I can be replaced." The suspended black lights crackled in protest as Eleanor leapt onto them, landing gracefully on all four paws and immediately vanishing before their eyes. Alex could still track her progress, however. The lights creaked beneath her weight as the invisible cat stalked her prey. Eleanor moved fast for her size. There was no way the centipede was going to make the next wire before 20 pounds of invisible cat caught her. "Get ready," Alex said. "If Eleanor knocks it down, we can't let it get away this time." They heard a quick hiss, and as though Eleanor was getting ready to pounce, before she could, however, the centipede abruptly changed direction and leapt back into the trellis, landing on the sick vine. "What's it doing?" Alex wondered, noticing that it was running on the underside of the vine and not along the top. The first dangler fell, cut loose by those tiny vibrating legs, and then a second, and then the third. It's cutting them all free, Alex realized with horror. Yasmin hopped on the table in one fluid motion, stepping on the first dangler before the sack even opened. By the time she got to the second one, 2 antennae had poked through its skin, and their ends like prickly balls. It met a similar end beneath her sneaker. The third one managed to escape its sack entirely. Alex caught a glimpse of far too many eyes before slamming a potted plant on top of it. The shredder had already vanished into the darkness. The vine shook. Alex heard tiny thumps as dangler after dangler fell onto the table. Listening closely, he heard another sound as well. Scratching, clicking, slithering. Eleanor, having finished a quick descent down the trellis, approached the sound. Her back was arched. The black lights augmented her luminous green eyes. Eleanor, Alex said, "Don't, there's too many. You'll get hurt." She looked at him askewed, as though the concern in his voice had surprised her, and vanished. In the darkness, they heard a loud howl, as Eleanor attacked. More sounds, hissing, a buzzing noise, like a flying insect, a pot shattering. Eleanor screeched in pain. Alex knew he shouldn't feel bad. The cat was his enemy, not his friend. But whether it was intentional or not, she was helping them right now. I can't let her die. He took a step forward into the darkness, but Yasmin grabbed his arm and shook her head. "We need to help her," Alex said. "Eleanor can take care of herself," Yasmin said. "You were right before. We should get out of here while we still can." The trellis shook as something crashed onto it. Eleanor hissed, and a chaos of foes replied in challenge, sharp clicks and angry critters and high-pitched squeals. So many, Alex thought. Eleanor started to hiss a second time, but then there was a snapping sound like a whip smacking concrete, followed by a large thud and something hit the ground. "Eleanor!" Alex asked. He heard a sizzle of electricity, followed by a blinding flash. The lights went out. This time, all of them. That's it for today. So tomorrow will be chapter 11 and 12. Have a good night. See you guys tomorrow.